One part of Smokey Robinson's story was already hidden by the time the world called him a legend. It didn't fit with the clean Motown story. It had to do with regret, loyalty, and a connection that wouldn't fit into a single category. They went to school together, grew up together, and saw a movement start around them. To most people, they were co-workers, friends, and icons of a time. The lines were never that easy behind the scenes. Smokey went back and forth between avoidance and denial over the years. They never really said no, but they also never really said yes. Now, after many years, when he has nothing left to hide, he finally tells the truth. In doing so, he quietly confirms what a lot of people already thought, but they could never prove what Smokey Robinson did as a child that made him who he is today. He was born William Robinson Jr. on February 19, 1940, in Detroit. He grew up in a working-class family that didn't have a lot of money but always had love. Love couldn't keep everything together, though. When he was young, his parents split up. Not long after that, things got even worse for him. He lost his mother when he was only 10 years old. For the next few months, his older sister took care of him and was like an anchor for him. Music was his way of getting away. He sang in local groups around Detroit. The harmonies and tunes made him feel better even though the world around him was changing all the time. People began calling him Smokey in those early years. It would become a name that was known all over the world. A lot of people thought the nickname came from the color of his skin, but that was never the case. The name came from Claude, who was his godfather and favorite uncle. Robinson loved Western movies as a child, and Uncle Claude would take him to the movies whenever he could. He thought his nephew should have a proper cowboy name, so one day he gave him the name Smokey Joe. Robinson liked it so much that it became a part of who he was. Before he was 3, he never said his name when someone asked it, but he did say William once. Smokey Joe was always what he said. He gave up Joe and kept Smokey when he was about 12 years old. The name stuck. The Matadors, who would later be called the Miracles, were his first group. They were formed a few years later. That childhood nickname, which came from going to the movies and loving your family, went far beyond Detroit and into music history. No matter what the rumors said, Robinson always made it clear that his nickname had nothing to do with the color of his skin. He heard the story. He knew why people believed it, but he always shot it down. The name Smokey came from a family member, not from how he looked. But there was a family history shaped by fear, survival, and the harsh realities of race in America behind that smooth voice and gentle presence. Robinson later told the scary story of his father's childhood, which showed what black families went through in the early 1900s. He was born in Selma, Alabama in 1896. His father was William Robinson Sr. He was already delivering newspapers to help support his family when he was only 10 years old. But every week, a white teen 5 years older than him would steal his money. There was no way to complain at that time and place. It might kill you. The boy knew that his money would probably be stolen as soon as he saw that kid, so he kept working. The younger brother was afraid to tell the bigger brother. They promised to keep him safe. He also knew that kind of security could bring a mob to their door. He and everyone he loved were in danger. Something finally gave way after 2 years of being robbed and made fun of. His dad bought a Boy Scout knife, not to cause trouble but to make sure it was over. It did happen. The mean kid tried him one last time on payday. The kid pushed him to the ground when he wouldn't give him his money. The bully's leg was cut very deeply by the knife at that moment. The screams got people's attention, and the theft stopped right away. Now, though, the danger was even bigger. A 12-year-old black boy had stabbed a young white boy. That was clear to him. He had to make a choice that no child should ever have to make. He went to the railway tracks, jumped on a passing train, and then he was gone. As a teen, he moved around a lot and didn't settle down until he was 19 years old and moved to Cleveland. He never ever went back to Selma. Robinson would say many years later that he knew his dad was hurting, but his grandmother broke his heart the most. She lost her youngest child all at once. She watched him disappear into the night and never knew if he was living, safe, or on his way home. How the heartbeat of Motown was made. Smokey Robinson put together a doo-wop group with some of his classmates when he was still a teenager, in 1955. It began like many young people's dreams do. Kids who want to find harmony after school and believe their voices can take them further. When Smokey met a young singer-songwriter named Berry Gordy, though, everything changed. Gordy could tell right away that Smokey's work was different, and he decided right away to help him. Smokey's music was a mix of two different styles. The doo-wop rhythms of the 1950s gave him a lot of ideas, those high-floating vocals and fun syllables that filled gyms and street corners. At the same time, he enjoyed the polished, smooth sound of jazz, which was popular at the time. He became known for that mix. It was as the group grew that the Five Chimes changed into a new group called the Matadors. There was even an audition with the manager of soul legend Jackie Wilson with this group. A big moment for some Detroit high school students. Even though things were going well, Smokey's original plan wasn't to make songs. He had a dream of becoming a doctor for a long time. When he got to 12th grade and had to start breaking things down in class, that dream came to an end. He realized right away that he couldn't do it. He changed his mind and started taking classes to get ready for electrical engineering. Smokey wasn't a kid who could just focus on school, though. Since he was 10, he had worked. He delivered newspapers, shined shoes, ran errands, worked in drugstores and food stores, and delivered telegrams after school by riding his bike around town. Western Union hired him full-time after he graduated. It was an easy plan. Get a job this autumn, save money for clothes and books, and then start college in January. The plan made sense and was safe. Everything changed when August 1957 came along. That month, Smokey and his band got an audition with Brunswick Records, which put out Jackie Wilson's hits. In a technical sense, the test failed. It passed, but there was one man in the room who was really paying attention. He stopped the group when they were done and asked where they got those songs. Smokey just told him that he wrote them. The man was shocked. He had just heard 5 songs and couldn't believe that all of them were written by one girl. He said he liked a few of them. And then he asked the question that changed the course of music history. Smokey, did you have any more? Smokey did it. He had almost 100 songs written down in a loose-leaf notebook. Berry Gordy, who wrote Jackie Wilson's biggest hits, was the one who asked. In front of Smokey, he told him that his voice was unique and he liked it. When they worked together after that, it became famous. The Miracles quickly took over from the Matadors. They were also one of the first artists signed when Gordy started Tambler Records in early 1959. This was the start of what would become Motown. Barber Gordy did more than just sign Smokey, he shaped him. One lesson stood out more than the rest. Each song had to have a clear idea, a start, a middle, and an end. People should be able to feel the finish, even if it wasn't perfect. That advice really stuck with Smokey, and it was clear right away. He wrote a song in less than 30 minutes one day. It was known as Shop Around. The group made 2 copies of it. The first one was too slow, while the second one had more energy. It came out in late 1960, and by early 1961 that faster take was all over. On the Billboard Hot 100 it peaked at number 2, and it was the first Motown record to sell 1 million copies. The label was now officially here. Smokey Robinson quickly became more than just a musician. It was only 3 years after Motown opened that he was made vice president of the company in 1962. In other words, he wasn't just hitting. He had a hand in making the label's future. Someone who will become a star came in when they were only 11 years old. His name was Steve Morris. He was known as Stevie Wonder after a while. A kid named Stevie told Smokey that he could sing better than Smokey when Smokey asked him if he could. That faith never went away. He was always remembered by Smokey as a naughty little kid with a big heart. For some reason, Stevie lost his eyes after being born early, but that didn't slow him down. He knew how to play the piano, guitar, and drums by the time he was 10. A real beauty. They had a hard time coming up with the right words for one instrumental track when Stevie started writing his own music. They asked Smokey to help them with it. Smokey thought it sounded like a show as soon as the music started. That brought back an old thought, a clown smiling through sadness. He wrote a song about someone who laughs most of the time but is really falling apart inside. This led to The Tears of a Clown. At the time that the Miracles recorded it in 1967, Motown didn't think it was good enough to be a single. It was a hidden gem on the Make It Happen record for years, known only to diehard fans, even after Smokey quit music in 1969 to spend more time with his family. Then, something strange happened in the UK in 1970. DJs were looking for rare American soul records as the Northern Soul movement took off. Motown chose to re-release one Miracle song in other countries and let the leader of a British fan club pick which one. The Tears of a Clown was the one she chose. It got to number 1 right away. The song had the same success when it was released again in the US. It topped the charts and brought Smokey Robinson out of retirement. A song that was forgotten on a record quickly became one of the most famous songs in pop history. Behind the scenes, Smokey was also writing music for other artists all the time, shaping the sound of an era in small ways. He wrote huge hits for Marvin Gaye, Mary Wells, the Jackson 5, and the Temptations. One song, though, stood out. After Mary Wells's number 1 hit, My Guy, Smokey turned the idea around, wrote it from a man's point of view, and made My Girl just for David Ruffin's voice. When the Temptations sang in the background, they brought it to life with their own magic. In Motown's history, it became one of their most beloved records. Smokey never thought of success as something to keep to yourself. Motown wasn't a business to him. It was family. They would all win if one artist won. People still call him the heart of the label because of the way he thinks. He was vice president of Motown until the company was sold in 1988. He was always loyal to Berry Gordy, even after he left. As a way to honor the company that changed their lives, he and his first wife, Claudette, named their children Barry and Tama. Respect was shown to both sides. Berry Gordy often said that Smokey wasn't just his first song or his first book. He was Motown's heart. And that title still fits exactly after all these years. Motown legend's worst accusations are made public. Early in May 2025, a big storm did a lot of damage to Smokey Robinson's reputation. 4 women sued the 85-year-old singer in Los Angeles Superior Court on May 7th, saying he sexually assaulted them and abused them for a long time. The claims were very strong. They included sexual assault, false imprisonment, violence against women, and a hostile work atmosphere. The lawsuit also named Robinson's wife, Frances, saying that she knew about his behavior but did nothing to stop him. The women say that between 2012 and 2024, They all worked as housekeepers or helpers in the Robinson home. The things they wrote in court documents painted a very disturbing picture of what went on inside a house that looked calm and beautiful from the outside. So someone who called herself Jane Doe 1 said she worked for the Robinsons from January 2023 to February 2024. She said the first attack happened in March 2023, just a few months into the job. She said the abuse didn't stop there and that she was attacked at least 7 more times before she quit. From what she said, Robinson stuck to a planned schedule. She said he would quickly drop his wife off at the nail shop and rush home, knowing they would be by themselves since she only worked on the weekends. She talked about being called into what Robinson called his blue bedroom. She said he would lock the door, send his dog out of the room and come back in after a shower wearing only knickers. She said he would put a towel on the bed before hitting her, which she said was violent and hurtful, and he never tried to protect her. Jane Doe also told a story like this, but hers went on for almost 6 years. From 2014 to 2020, she worked as a maid and said she was abused at least 23 times. It was consistent and predictable, she said. Robinson would call her to places without security cams, like the garage or laundry room, and then attack her. She also said she had multiple forced encounters in the blue bedroom, where she was raped and sex-forced without any protection. The most important thing about her filing was the claim of emotional control. She said that whenever she tried to say no to Robinson, he would threaten to make his wife treat her badly, which made her stay quiet. From 2012 to 2024, Jane Doe 3 worked at the Robinson house for more than 10 years. Robinson allegedly hit her more than 20 times, she said. In her story, she also talked about a right that happened over and over again. Robinson came out of the bathroom wearing almost nothing, put a towel on the bed and pushed himself on her. It was also said that when she refused once, he offered her $500 just to have oral sex, which she turned down. She talked about a place of work where people touched her inappropriately and made constant sexual attempts. Jane Doe 4 was the fourth accused. She said she worked closely with the couple for almost 18 years, beginning in 2006. She was more than just a housekeeper, she also cooked, did hair, and was a personal helper. She says the abuse started in 2007 when she went to Robinson's house in Las Vegas and says he raped her. She said the attacks went on for years, with another one happening in 2019, and many more happening in the blue bedroom at the main house. She said Robinson never used protection and that each time they met, she felt completely embarrassed. The women said they were quiet because they were afraid. They said they were scared of losing their jobs, being shamed in public, and the emotional weight of speaking out against a famous musician. In addition to the assault claims, they also said that the Robinsons had broken the rules at work by not paying overtime and not giving workers enough breaks. The claims put a dark cloud over a career that seemed invincible before. The late Smokey Robinson was more than just a singer for many years. He was an icon of Motown and a pioneer who made modern music what it is today. But this story, like many others before it, brought up the same uncomfortable question. What really went on behind the scenes? While everyone cheered, Robinson's lawyers fought back right away, calling the claims vile and baseless. Christopher Frost, his lawyer, called the lawsuit a swindle and said the lawyers for the plaintiff were trying to make a media circus out of it. He said that the stories were full of errors and problems with the timeline and asked people not to judge. Robinson talked about the situation quickly on the phone with the Daily Mail, where he said he was shocked by the accusations. He quickly stopped the call, saying he couldn't talk about it, according to the tabloid. He sounded sick. The case started out as a civil one. The LA County District Attorney's Office said they had not been given any criminal cases, and the LAPD would not say anything. Legal experts said that in civil cases, claims only need to be proven to be more likely true than false, but in criminal cases, they need to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The public had a mixed response. Some fans were shocked and upset, while others stood up for Robinson, saying that the claims were hard to believe because of his age and health. Still, the singer had a rough past. He had been open about his problems with addiction and cheating for a long time, and many of his fans believed his story of how faith helped him change. It wasn't just a show for them. He lived, was a hero, and blazed a trail. Robinson went back on stage at the Beau Rivage Theater in Mississippi just 2 days after the case was filed. He never said a word about the accusations. Instead, he played on his fans' memories by making jokes and telling stories about the good old days of Motown. People in the crowd laughed, sang along, and cheered. At the end of the night, he left the stage to a standing ovation. For a moment, it seemed like the outside world had gone away. The story then went in a different direction. The LA County Sheriff's Department stated on May 16, 2025, that Smokey Robinson was being investigated for crimes. They said the case was still in its early stages and didn't give any more information. Robinson denied all of the accusations again, and his lawyers said they were glad for the probe because the truth is powerful. Robinson's lawyer told the BBC that the accusations were made up to hurt his client's reputation and make the case a show. He said that the investigation was only going on because the accusers put in a report. They said that neither Smokey nor his wife had done anything wrong. Robinson got back at him by the end of the month. A cross-complaint for $500 million was made against the four women on May 29, 2025. It was for defamation and elder abuse. His team also tried to get the women's identity taken away, saying that the accusations were so far from the truth that the Robinsons couldn't even tell which accuser was which. By the end of May 2025, Smokey was even more in trouble with the law. On May 31, news came out that yet another sexual assault claim had been made. This was the latest in a long line of claims that could change his reputation. It had only been a few weeks since Robinson and his wife were accused of rape by four former housekeepers. But it also brought up a part of the past that a lot of people didn't know about. The LA County District Attorney's Office says that Robinson was the subject of a sexual assault claim sometime in 2015. The case never went to court, not because it was thrown out as false, but because officials said there wasn't enough proof at the time to bring charges. The office confirmed that the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department had brought the claim to their attention, but they wouldn't give any more information because they said that an investigation into the newer claims is still going on. The story took a new turn in November 2025 as people tried to keep up with all the new turns. Two more people came forward to say they were sexually assaulted. Robinson was sued for $50 million by four former employees just 6 months before this. In May, those women had sued without giving their names. However, on November 14, they went back to court with a request to expand the case, asking for two more alleged victims, a man and a woman. Both of them said Robinson had tried to get them to touch him in a bad way. With that filing, the lawsuit went from having 4 voices to having 6, all of which were repeating the same pattern of behavior. Robinson's lawyers replied almost right away. Christopher Frost, his lawyer, said in a statement that the lawsuit was a deliberate attempt to get money off of an old music star. He said that the accusers and their lawyers were trying to get global attention by staying anonymous. He insisted that the accusations were false and that the truth would eventually show how they were making money. People looked at court papers that showed new disturbing claims from a woman named Jane Doe 5. She said that Robinson forced her to work as a maid on and off from 2005 to 2011 and that the harassment never stopped during that time. She said Robinson grabbed her hand over and over and tried to make her touch him, sometimes as more than 10 times. He also called her into the bathroom while he was showering and asked her to scrub his back all the time, she said. She said Robinson touched her breasts more than once, which she said was so upsetting that it made her decide to have breast reduction surgery in 2015. She didn't just blame Smokey for what she did. She also named his wife Frances and said that while she was working in their home, she made it a dangerous place to work and used racially offensive language toward her. There were also claims from a man named John Doe 1 in the motion. He said that he started working for the Robinsons in 2013 and that his main job was to clean their cars. His paperwork said Robinson would strip down in front of him and touch himself while he was there. He said Robinson tried to force him to touch his penis in 2022, which made the behavior worse. He says he was fired after that, but Frances is said to have called him about a year later and asked him to come back to work. He did, but he says the harassment kept going on. The filing talks about a cycle of fear, shame, and mental pain that made him worry about his safety and honor all the time. John Harris, the lawyer for the plaintiff, praised the two new accusers for coming forward. He called their choice courageous and promised to fight hard for their justice. He also said that these new accounts weren't just made up for no reason. The motion said that their stories were almost exact copies of the earlier accusations, including the same places, times, and actions that were said to have happened. The lawyers asked the court to let the case grow and include the new claims because of the parallels. The case then took another strange turn in December 2025. Robinson went to court again and said that one of his accusers broke into his property. The filing says that on November 22, the woman used an old key to get into a storage unit on his property and take several personal items. Robinson said that security cameras caught the whole thing and showed the woman putting boxes of things into a car and leaving with 2 other people. The document said that even though she may have been given a key while she was working, she had no legal right to be on the land or take anything. So, the Robinson family went to court and asked for an emergency restraining order. They wanted the woman to give back the items, give up any old keys, and stay at least 100 yards away from the property. It says that the woman in the filing is one of 4 former housekeepers who sued Robinson in May. Robinson has rejected all of the women's claims in that lawsuit that they sexually assaulted him, hit him, and put him in jail without a warrant. What began as a single lawsuit had grown into a huge legal fight that kept getting bigger with each new claim, counterclaim, and piece of information that came to light, pulling one of the most famous musicians deeper into a story that has nothing to do with the songs that made him famous. Smokey Robinson, who is now 85 years old, says, "She was the love of my life." He grew up at 581 Belmont Street in the north end of Detroit. A legend would live just a few doors away, and it would have been like something out of a movie. Diana Ross lived on the same block. 2 kids who grew up in the same neighborhood before anyone knew their names. Diana's family soon moved to the Brewster Douglas housing projects, and she joined a girl group there called the Primes. That group would become the Supremes in the end. She already knew who to call when Diana decided it was time to take music seriously. She was about 8 years old when Smokey met her. Diana reached out to him when Motown was up and running and she was about to graduate from high school. She asked him to listen to her group. He listened and saw the ability right away. That was the moment that history began. Diana later wrote in her autobiography, Secrets of a Sparrow, that Smokey was like the Supreme's adopted brother. He was more than a friend. She looked up to him and put a lot of trust in him. Even though he was always on the road and the Miracles became very famous, they were still close because they had the same roots, dreams, and struggles. That link was much stronger than friendship. Berry Gordy was Smokey's close friend and boss, and Diana was in a very public relationship with him from 1965 to 1970. Their personal and professional lives were very connected, and the fact that their daughter Rhonda was born only 9 months after they broke up made the past of Motown's close friends and family even more complicated. After many years, in 1985, Smokey shocked Diana on stage while she was doing her Las Vegas residency. As he stood in front of the crowd, he was proud to say that he had been there at the start of her trip. They laughed, kissed, and then sang her song Missing You together, which made the moment both funny and sad. It was a rare public moment for two people who had shared life and music for decades. And it's strange that, despite everything they'd been through together, they never actually recorded a duet together. In a later conversation, Smokey finally told the truth about his relationship with Diana. He didn't say he wasn't dating her when it was known she had written about it. He said it was true and that the relationship went on longer than it should have since he was married at the time. Being honest about it was hard, and it made their relationship look more complex. In a previous interview, Smokey had laughed off the idea of marriage completely. This interview showed how honest he was. When he spoke about their childhood friendship, he said that they had grown up 4 doors apart and were always close. When pushed further, he laughed it off again, saying that their friendship had been taken the wrong way. The depth of their relationship, on the other hand, could not be denied. Smokey Robinson and Diana Ross had a past together that went beyond music. They went from being kids in the neighborhood to being famous people in Motown. Longer than fame and much longer than most people knew.